In 2004, a daily journal entry started to appear on the children's website, Funbrain. These entries chronicled the life of a preteen who had just started 6th grade. This interactive book caught a lot of attention online, and in 2006, the publishing rights were sold to Abraham Books. Immediately becoming a bestseller after its release in 2006, the series spawned 13 current sequels, with one on the way, 4 movies, 2 books about those movies, a do-it-yourself book, a rumored TV show on Disney+, an entire generation of memes.
The Manny will not be televised, man.
The Manny will not be televised.
Look, pissed off the Manny. Look how mad he is. He's tired of police brutality.
You know what I'm talking about. And a musical.
Stuck in the middle. Stuck in the middle. You're back and you're back against the wall.
That's right. A fucking musical. I, of course, am talking about Diary of a Wimpy Kid and its author, Jeff Kinney. Oh, fuck, it didn't even start yet. Let me do that again. I, of course, am talking about Diary of a Wimpy Kid and its author, Jeff Kinney. Hey there, I'm Connor McDowell, and this is the first video on my channel. If you like this video and you want to see more content like it in the future, don't forget to click like and subscribe. Whoa, look at that! I'm making a video. Okay. Now for my first video, I thought it would be fun to take a little trip down memory lane and talk about the first 3 books in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. Starting with, obviously, the first one. Now when I was a kid, this was my favorite series of all time. Nope, it wasn't. That's a lie. Now, when I was a kid, this was one of my favorite book series of all time. I read this book so much that some of the jokes are ingrained into my mind. And that's not to mention jokes that have influenced my generation for the past 13 years. Jokes like the cheese touch, which may or may not be responsible for some of my childhood trauma.
Look at this loser
he
with
has
the Connor touch.
Stay away from him. Oh my
You
god.
the gross
Connor
little
touch.
dumb
You
stupid little
It can't hurt
bitch.
you, Connor. Oh my god.
Get over it.
And Zooey Mama, a phrase that I still sometimes say to this day. Now, you may know that the author Jeff Kinney was the inventor of the famous website Pop Tropica, but did you know that he's currently the 4th highest paid author in the world? And I'm not talking about just children's authors, I'm talking about all of the authors. All of them. The only people that make more money than him are the TERF, the guy who wrote a fuck ton of books, and the former First Lady of the United States of America. Jeff Kinney currently makes more money than Stephen King. Let that sink in, alright? Let that sink in. I said let that sink in! No, I don't want to do that joke. Now it's time to answer the age-old question. Who exactly is Greg Heffley? The simple answer is, he's a selfish, entitled bully who views everyone other than himself, his family, and the girls he's interested in as disgusting, dumb, or both. But I mean, come on, cut the kid a break. I was an asshole in 6th grade. You were an asshole in 6th grade. Greg was an asshole in 6th grade. He's very similar to a lot of us. He loves video games. He's easily annoyed, especially by his best friend Raleigh, who is the exact opposite of him in every single way possible. He has the worst ideas. I mean, some of the worst ideas I've ever heard come out of a 6th grader. He thinks that grade levels should go by height instead of age. He puts his best friend in physical harm multiple times. But you know what? Go you, Greg Heffley. You do you. If you want to hurt your friend, hurt your friend. Please don't hurt your friend. I'm not actually advocating for you to go and hurt your friends. That's a bad idea. Greg Heffley is a fictional character. You are not a fictional character. Please don't hurt your friends. Now, the first day of 6th grade for Greg Heffley is full of the same boring stuff. Class, girls, bullies. But that all changes when the cheese touch arrives. Now, in case you don't know what the cheese touch is, it's basically COVID-19, but instead of a deadly disease, it's cheese that's been left out on the blacktop for a couple of months. Now, if you touch the cheese, you have the cheese touch, and nobody wants to be around you. Now, your goal, if you have the cheese touch, is to get rid of it by tagging somebody else who doesn't have it. It's like tag, but gross and worse. Now, I decided to keep a tally on how many times the cheese touch was mentioned in the first book. So far, I'm at 6. Now it's time to meet Greg's family. The first person we're introduced to is his older brother, Roderick. Roderick is the typical punk rock older brother. He's got a band, he pulls pranks on Greg. We all love Roderick, don't we? Roderick. Then we meet his younger brother, Manny, who is a little shit. He draws on the door, He calls Greg Bubby, which Greg hates. He doesn't finish his food, and he's not even potty trained. Come on, dude. Even I'm potty trained, and I'm a dumbass. Now we meet Greg's parents. Frank is his father, and he's really fucking boring. He hates teenagers, which is a great quality for a father. He hates loud music, which means he also hates Roderick's music, which is a great quality for a father. And he loves to give a false sense of security when disciplining his kids, which is a great quality for a father. Now, Greg's mom, Susan, just wants a big, happy family. She's super supportive. Maybe she's a little too supportive at times. And she loves to give a false sense of security. Woo! We love parenting troubles. Yay, parenting troubles. Now, a funny thing about their father is he really doesn't care about his children. The only time he actually cares about them is when they're doing something that he also likes. For example, when Greg runs to be treasurer, he's very excited because he also ran for treasurer when he was in high school. When Greg wants to start lifting weights so he doesn't have to wrestle the weird kid Fregley, his dad is so happy because finally Greg isn't playing video games. Not to mention that Frank totally despises Roderick's music and almost everything about Roderick in total. Now, Greg's mom, like I mentioned before, is super supportive, but she's also very overbearing at times. A good example of this is when Greg and Raleigh go to the haunted house at the local high school with her. They get in, it's too scary for them, she yells at the people that are working, and she has them escorted out of the haunted house. But you know what? That's fine with Greg. That's fine with Raleigh, because they're going to go and make their own haunted house in Raleigh's basement. They spend all day planning out this super elaborate map of the whole basement with all these different attractions in different places. But by the time they put out the flyers and they get back, they realize that they don't really have time to set up everything that they wanted to, so they just set up a couple of different things. They end up scaring the shit out of the first kid that goes in there, and they're forced to shut down by Raleigh's dad. But you know what? It's fine. Greg's fine. Raleigh's fine. Because Halloween is coming up, and they have a plan to go to as many houses as they can and get as much candy as humanly possible. And that, of course, is ruined when Greg's mom makes them take Manny with them. And when they complain, Greg's mom makes their dad go with them. So now they have two people with them that they don't want there, because now they can't get their fucking candy. Eventually, Greg's dad decides it's time for Manny to go home, so they leave, and now Greg and Raleigh are free to go get as much candy as they want. But at this point, it's 10 o'clock, and nobody wants to give candy out. At one point, they're walking down the street that Greg's grandmother lives on, and a truck of teenagers comes. The teenagers spray Raleigh with a fire extinguisher, and Greg decides it's a good idea to yell back, "I'm calling the cops." So now Greg and Raleigh have to hide in Greg's grandmother's house and wait a couple hours until they're pretty sure that the teenagers are gone. Now they have to sneak back to Greg's house in total fear of these teenagers. So when any car comes by, they have to quickly duck into the woods to make sure it's not the teenagers. Once we get home, we find out Frank's back on his bullshit because he decided to throw a trash can full of water on Greg and Raleigh because he thought they were teenagers that were there to vandalize his house. He's such a good dad. I love Frank. Frank is such a good dad. And when they get inside, they find out that all of their candy is completely destroyed, thanks to Greg's fantastic father. In the winter, Greg's mom makes him audition for the musical, which Greg does not want to do. And I have to say, if you have children, please don't make them audition for the musical if they don't want to. They're doing The Wizard of Oz, and Greg decides that he wants to be a tree that throws apples at Dorothy, because Dorothy is being played by Patty Farrell. You know, because Greg loves to bring physical harm to the people around him. So Greg gets cast as a tree, but the thing is, they're not going to cut any armholes in the tree costumes, so Greg doesn't get to throw any apples at people. Now this, mixed with the fact that the teacher wrote a song for the trees to sing, makes Greg really unhappy. Now the night before the show comes, and nobody knows their fucking lines. And let me tell you a little secret.
If you're gonna be in a show, you should learn your lines. Just learn them. It's not that hard. Just learn them. Just learn your lines, please. Please learn your lines. If you don't learn your lines, you're gonna ruin the show. This is a PSA from Connor. Thank you very much.
Now another problem that happens the night before the show is one of the trees trips over the kid that plays the shrub and he chips his tooth. Now Greg is pretty happy about this because they decide they're going to cut armholes in the costumes for the trees. The next night is opening night, and Greg decides he's going to take a little peek out from the curtain to see who's out there, and he sees Roderick out there with a camcorder. So when Greg goes out with the other trees to sing the song, Greg just doesn't sing, which makes the other trees stop singing, which makes the teacher come over and try to whisper the lyrics to them, which makes the audience confused, which makes Patty Farrell mad. which makes Greg decide it's a good idea to take one of his apples and chuck it at Patty Farrell, which makes the other trees decide it's a good idea to take their apples and chuck them at Patty Farrell, which makes Patty Farrell's glasses break, which means Patty Farrell cannot continue the show, which means the show has to shut down. And Greg, not wanting to be in the musical, is the sole reason the whole musical got shut down, and I swear to God, if you make your kids do a musical and they don't want to do it, they're going to ruin it. Don't make them do it. Please don't make them do it. I'm begging you. I'm not going to get on my knees, but I am 100% begging you, if your child does not want to do it, don't make them do it. But again, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Because Christmas is here, and Greg is going to get the only gift he wants, which is the new video game, Twisted Wizard. But then, of course, Susan mixes up the gifts, and gives Greg's gift to a homeless man, and gives the homeless man's gift to Greg. Which means no video game for Greg. And the kicker is, Susan doesn't even take the boy to go out and get the video game afterwards. You fuck up, which means your kid doesn't get the Christmas present that you wanted, even though you already bought it for them. Which means now your kid is stuck with a sweater, and you're not even going to take your kid to go out and buy the game that you bought him in the first place because you fucked up. That just means you're a great parent. That's all I gotta say. But you know what? Even that's fine, because Raleigh got Greg a present. Do you know what it is? Do you want to know what it is? You want to open the present? You want to open Greg's present? Okay, go ahead. Open it. It's a big wheel! Greg is in 6th grade and his best friend bought him a toy for a toddler. Yay, Raleigh! I mean, honestly, Greg kinda deserves a toy for a toddler because he's been acting like one for the entire book, so... Greg and Raleigh decide to go outside to play with the new big wheel, and Greg comes up with a game where he takes a football and he chucks it at the front wheel while Raleigh's driving down a hill. Needless to say, doesn't end well, because Greg fucking breaks Raleigh's arm. Now, a broken arm is bad enough, but when Raleigh starts to get more attention than Greg at school, Greg decides it's a good idea to piggyback off of that and pretend to have an infection to get people to sign his sympathy sheet. Greg and Raleigh join the safety patrol, which means that they have to escort the morning kindergartners back home in the middle of school. Greg likes this because that means they get to miss class and they get free hot chocolate. But then, of course, Greg fucks it up for Raleigh. So Raleigh can't go one day, and he lends Greg his coat, and Greg decides to chase the kindergartners around with a worm on a stick. And I don't mean the toy. I mean an actual worm on a stick. One of the neighbors sees them, thinks it's Raleigh, calls the school, Raleigh gets kicked off the squad, Greg stays on the squad, Greg tells Raleigh that it was actually him that chased the kids with the worm. Raleigh gets upset, goes to the man that's in charge of the safety patrol, tells them that it wasn't him and it was actually Greg that chased them. Then Greg gets kicked off the patrol, and now Raleigh is back on the patrol. Which brings me to the Zooey Mama fiasco of 2007. There's an opening in the school newspaper for a new comic, and Greg and Raleigh decide that they're gonna make a comic together. Greg comes up with this idea called Zooey Mama, which basically, something bad happens to a character, and either that character says, Zooey Mama, or another character says, Zooey Mama, and that's the whole entire thing. But of course, Greg fucks it up because he doesn't let Raleigh do anything, and then Raleigh gets upset, and Greg decides he's just going to give Zooey Mama to Raleigh, and he's going to go off and he's going to do his own comic, which he calls Cretin the Cretin. And it is horrible. Cretin the Cretin gets picked to be in the school newspaper, and Greg's ego just gets so much bigger. Greg's ego is fucking massive now. If you thought Greg's ego was big before, you have absolutely no idea how big his ego can get. It's fucking insane. That is until Greg finds out that the teacher in charge of picking the comic completely changed it, and now it's unrecognizable from what it was in the beginning. Which means Greg pulls Cretin the Cretin out of the school newspaper, and which means Zooey Mama gets picked to be put in the school newspaper, which means Greg is now upset that Raleigh's taking all the credit for the idea that he came up with, which makes Greg hate Raleigh even more now that they're not friends. And all of this culminates in a big fight on the blacktop right around the cheese, and a whole group of people gathers around, and they're like, fight, 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 fight. So a truck of teenagers pulls up to the blacktop, and everybody scatters except for Greg and Raleigh. Can we take a guess as to who these teenagers are? What are the same teenagers from Halloween? That is correct. Now can we take a guess as to what these teenagers make Raleigh do? What is Eat the Infamous Cheese Touch Cheese? That is correct. Woo! Call me Ken Jennings because Alex Trebek is shitting himself. I am on fire right now with these answers. Woo! Yes, I did write the questions, and yes, the answers were obvious because I am doing a video on the books that the answers are in, so. Greg finally does what's right, and he stands up for his best friend. He tells everybody in school that he himself, Greg, middle name redacted Heffley, threw out the cheese. Which means Greg now has the cheese touch. And that's the end of the book. It is absolutely insane to think about how Jeff Kinney created 2 cultural stepping stones inside of one book. Now, going back to the cheese touch counter, the cheese touch itself was only mentioned 9 times in the whole fucking book. That's only 0.4% of the entire book going by page number. And it's 0.0045% of the entire book going by word count. If you still don't understand how fucking insane that is, then you yourself are an idiot. And that brings us to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules. This is definitely my favorite out of the first 3 books, and that's because it's less plot heavy, there's more jokes, and I fucking love Roderick. All my homies love Roderick. It's now 7th grade, and Greg Heffley has a secret that only Roderick knows about. And Roderick is dangling that secret right over Greg's acne-ridden head. Now, some other things that Greg has to deal with in 7th grade other than a shit brother is a shit father, because his dad makes him join the swim team. He also has shit teachers that had Roderick before him, so they automatically just do not trust Greg. He's got to deal with Raleigh being super annoying about the vacation he just came back from, as well as Raleigh's obsession with the European singer Joshi, who, if I might say, quite the looker. Shh, don't tell him I said that. He's got to deal with getting a pen pal he doesn't want, not wanting to play D&D, but then playing it and loving it. And then he has to deal with Raleigh getting hurt again on a tinfoil ball filled with toothpicks that Manny gave him as a sorry for breaking your game system with a cookie present. He was a pet sitter, but he did a really bad job at it, so he didn't get paid. He has to take music lessons with Roderick. He has to deal with his dad's Civil War obsession. And then there's Greg's weird grandfather. You know what? Let's talk about Greg's grandfather for a little bit. He's old, he's gross, he's got no teeth, he makes Greg sleep in the same bed as him, he makes them play lame-ass board games, and he makes them eat watercress salad, which Greg hates. Now, the last thing you need to know about Greg's grandfather is that he watches the security footage on his TV in his bedroom. Now, remember that. That's going to be really important. Now, as the year continues, Greg also has to deal with the implementation of Mom Bucks by his mom, Susan. So Mom Bucks is just Monopoly money that's given to Greg and Roderick by Susan if they do something good, like their chores, or they go out of their way to do something nice for somebody. Greg, of course, takes advantage of this when he finds the same play money at Raleigh's house, and he brings it home and he hides it until he needs to buy one of Roderick's old papers for school, because Greg decided not to do the paper. So yeah, Roderick and Greg both got an F on that paper. Now, Frank and Susan decide to go out for the weekend, and they leave Roderick and Greg at the house by themselves. So you know what that means. Greg's getting pretty excited for the party. He's never been to a high school party before, but Roderick decides to lock him in the basement, so Greg has absolutely no fun for the whole night. Now, the next morning they have to clean up before their parents get home, and that includes everything from picking up trash to replacing the bathroom door that somebody drew on. And now, of course, Greg is pretty pissed about the entire situation, but he can't do anything because if he does, then Roderick's going to tell everybody his secret. And that brings us to the finale of the book, the talent show. Greg decides that he wants to do a sketch with Raleigh so that he can sim for Holly Hills some more, but Raleigh doesn't like the idea of playing a dog in the sketch, so Raleigh quits and goes and does a magic act with his friend from karate. Raleigh sleeps over at Greg's house and he's kicking a pillow across the room, so Greg thinks it would be a funny idea that when Raleigh goes upstairs to use the bathroom again, he hides a weight underneath of the pillow. And when Raleigh comes back down the stairs and he kicks the pillow, he breaks his foot, which means this is 2 times that Greg literally breaks his best friend. Now, of course, Raleigh can't participate in a magic act with a broken foot, so you know what that means? Ding, 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 that's right. Greg's mom forces Greg to do it instead. And in true Greg fashion, he blows the audition and they don't get into the talent show. But Roderick does get into the talent show with his band Loaded Dice. But tragically, they end up losing to a kid on roller skates. But you know what? It's okay. It's fine. Because Roderick and Loaded Diaper are just gonna send the video that Susan took of them to a bunch of agents. Until they find out that the video is basically worthless because Susan was dancing and talking the entire time she was recording. So the whole family gets into this big fight, and it ends with Roderick telling everybody Greg's secret. Are you ready to hear Greg's secret? Well, you shouldn't be, because it's really fucking underwhelming. Remember how I said their grandfather watches the security cameras in their apartment? Well, Greg got stuck in the women's room, and a bunch of women went in there, and they saw him in there, and they were like, it's a peeping Tom, it's a peeping Tom, and he got taken out by security. And Roderick saw it on the TV that was showing what was happening on the security cameras. And of course Greg is terrified to go back to school because now everybody knows that he went into the women's room. But everybody at school got the story wrong, and they thought that he went into the women's locker room. And all of the guys were like, yeah, Greg, yeah, Greg, yeah, Greg, yeah, Greg, yeah, Greg. And all of the girls at school were justifiably disgusted. So what's the moral of Roderick Rules? Well, there's actually 2 morals. Number 1, don't have a brother. And number 2, scientifically, plants do not sneeze. And finally, we're going to talk about the one they forgot to make into a movie. Which, honestly, I don't blame them because nothing really happens in this book. Like, at all. It's definitely my least favorite of the 3, but that being said, I still love it. Sure, it's less plot dense and a lot less joke dense, but it's still a good book. One of my favorite jokes is actually in this book. In the beginning, we find out that Greg was absolutely terrified of the picture of Shel Silverstein on the back of the Giving Tree, and I was also terrified of the picture of Shel Silverstein on the back of the Giving Tree, which is really funny because I thought I was the only one that was actually scared of the picture of Shel Silverstein. I was actually scared of 2 things from children's books when I was a kid. The picture of Shel Silverstein and Max at the end of Where the Wild Things Are. Both of those terrify me to this day. Now this book basically has 2 plots in it. There's plot 1, simping for Holly Hills, and plot 2, trying not to get sent to military school. Now these 2 plot points intersect a lot throughout the entire book. In fact, Greg doesn't even stop simping for Holly Hills when he shits himself on Easter. Okay, well, he doesn't actually shit himself. He just sits in chocolate before they go to church and it looks like he shits himself. And let me tell you, the movie Dog Days took this to the fucking extreme. And of course, it wouldn't be Diary of a Wimpy Kid if Frank didn't make Greg do something he didn't want to fucking do. Because Frank makes Greg sign up for the soccer team. And when Greg messes up on the soccer team when he sits down in the grass instead of blocking the ball from getting in the goal, Frank starts to think about military school. In order to avoid military school, Greg decides he wants to join Boy Scouts. Now, Greg was supposed to go on a camping trip with Boy Scouts, but Greg gets sick and he can't go. Frank, however, was already signed up to chaperone, so Frank is forced to go on the camping trip, and he ends up in the hospital with 2 boys that beat the shit out of each other. So Frank isn't very happy with Greg right now, and military school's looking pretty good. Greg just does not want to go to military school. So he tells his dad, hey, I want to take you on a camping trip, just me and you and Roderick, I guess. So they all go out to go on a camping trip together so that Greg can show his expertise, and it starts to rain. And they end up going to a hotel instead. While they're at the hotel, Roderick decides it would be a funny idea to push Greg out of the room while he's still in his underwear. And when Frank finds Greg in his underwear in the hallway, Frank's like, nah, dude, you're definitely going to military school now. And at this point, Greg has pretty much accepted the fact that he's going to go to military school, so he uses the rest of the school year to try to get with Holly Hills. Greg tries so freaking hard to get with her. This man goes out of his way to shake her hand during the Peace Be With You section of church. So the Heffleys have to go to a party at their neighbor's house for the new baby that they just had. And at this party, all of the adults are forced to try to make the newborn laugh. Frank doesn't want to do this, so he asks Greg to come up with a distraction any way he possibly can. Before Greg can come up with the distraction, he sees Manny going through all of the presents to find a blanket. A blanket that just happens to look like the blanket he had when he was a kid. When Greg tells Manny to put the blanket back, Manny throws the blanket in a tree. So now Greg has to climb up the tree, and while he's climbing up the tree to get this blanket, his pants fall down, inadvertently creating the distraction that his dad asked for. And that means no military school for Greg. School is finally over, and Greg decides he's going to spend his summer simping for the new girl Trista while chilling at Rowley's Country Club. In conclusion, this is one of the best children's series ever written, and I loved making a video about it, and I'm so excited to make videos about the other books in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like this video, don't forget to click like and subscribe. Comment down below of what you think I should keep, what I should change, if there's anything you want me to do a video on in the future, any piece of advice means the world to me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.